So when I quit Walmart, I drove to the bus station and bought a one-way bus ticket. That's life, man. Like that. When I figured this out, this was my whole life changed. But as I'm thinking it, like in real time, as I'm thinking this, my phone starts ringing. Like, who is this? Answer the phone. This guy comes on the phone, so excited. Hey, Corey, how you doing? I'm a representative of the Cleveland Browns. We want you to be a part of the team. We got your agent on the other line. He's working out the deals to your contract right now. Like literally,
as you're sitting there watching the draft end.
Just like that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint. I'm Rohan, and I'm joined here today by a very special guest, Corey Jackson, who's a former NFL player and a current founder of Quirks, which is a recruiting firm. Thank you so much, man, for being here today. It's really an honor to have a man like you on this podcast. It's really, really cool. So I guess I'm just going to get started real quick. Can you tell me like your story? Because we talked about this earlier on the phone, and your story of how you went from you were going initially to the NBA, then to the NFL. Now you're doing this founder's business. Like, what was your childhood like? Like, how did this story take place?
Yeah, man. So when I was 5 years old, I knew I wanted to be a professional athlete. Like, like I was already sold on it, had my mind made up. Grew up, we didn't have a whole lot. And so being outside was really the big thing for us. So, getting to be outside, play outside. And so I started out playing with my cousins, which were older than me. And so I would play basketball with them, and we would actually like put together our basketball goals. So we'll find a pole and a thing, like we'll make our whole little basketball goal. And so they were older than me, so I would lose to them all the time. And so I'm super competitive, even when I was a little kid. So I would get irate, man. I'll try to fight. I'll cry. Like, I would go home crying like every night, right? And it just kept like, it was just something in me that just kept pushing me to keep coming back. And so I would lose to them all the way up until maybe I was about 12 years old. So from about 5 years old to like 12 years old, I'm losing to these guys all the time. And then I started growing. I started getting better. And then things changed. By the time I hit my teenage years, I could beat those guys, and then so they stopped wanting to play against me, and they start bringing their friends over and say, hey, let's play against our friends, right? And so I kind of knew like I had something different. And so when I got to high school, I was fully committed to basketball, like 100%. I'm like, I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to the NBA. This is the path for me. Get to high school, went to a really small high school. And, back in, late 90s, obviously the internet was different, technology was different, how we communicate was different.
You couldn't record like highlight clips or anything like that.
Yeah, it was just totally different. I mean, we still had VHS tapes and, things like that. So being at a small high school, I didn't get a lot of attention. I had a great career there, but just didn't get a lot of notice. Didn't get a scholarship offer. And then I wasn't excellent in the classroom. I had some challenges to overcome in the classroom. So that kind of contributed to a little bit of my struggles. And then like my senior year.
So, like in your high school years, were you like in high school and senior year, were you at NBA level? Like that rest, like, do you think that you were at the level that you should have been to be in the NBA at that time? Like, were you really good? Like, what kind of numbers were you putting up?
I was very athletic. I had the size.
Yeah, 6'6", right?
It's the skill set wasn't there because, like I said, I went from a small high school, so we didn't really have. Just to put it in perspective, my basketball coach, when I came back to visit the school like years later, he was coaching the girls. So like,
really?
So we didn't have like that type of
definitely.
program, So physically, I had some athletic ability. Skill wise, I had a long ways to go, for sure. And so my senior year was really a great year. I averaged probably about 22 points a game, probably about 12 rebounds. And so this is just raw athleticism, though. Like this is just raw talent. And I remember going to my guidance counselor one day, and I was like, man, I really think I can go to college and play basketball, man. I think I can do it. And he pulled up like all my records and everything, and he said, man, I just don't think college is the thing for you,
Oh, really? So he wanted you to not go to college or just practice basketball and then get in after that.
No, yeah, he was looking at kind of the classes I was taking, and like I
Oh,
said, I was a little, I wasn't excelling in the classroom
yeah.
like some of the other students that were, going off to college. And I think that in his mind, it was like, well, this guy really isn't, academically going in that direction. So he was
Mhm.
trying to, I think in his mind, give me a better option, right? Something that quote unquote is more realistic. And so, but I tell people this all the time because I speak to a lot of young people, and I always share with them like it doesn't matter where you are at the moment. I said people are going to give you advice based upon what they see currently. But what they can't know is what you're prepared to do, right? What are you willing to do to get to that next level? And so I use that as an example because my guidance counselor had no idea that I was just insane about my dreams. Like he had
Yeah.
no idea the lengths that I was willing to go to achieve those things.
But did you even know that either? Like in when you were talking to that guidance counselor, did you yourself even know that you had the ability to do those type of things later on? Because I use the example by David Goggins in a way, because he didn't always knew he could have that kind of work ethic. In the beginning, he was just like a exterminator, right? Like, did
Yeah.
you always know that there's something inside you that there was like a beast or a mentality that people just couldn't understand or grasp?
Yeah, so it's kind of a twofold thing, right? So I told you when I was very young, I developed this
Yeah,
mentality
definitely.
about myself, right? So when you're a kid, everything's possible. Everything's possible. The moment that I was sitting in front of that guidance counselor, and it became real, and now as an 18-year-old kid, he's saying it's not possible.
Yeah.
It really took a lot of the wind out of myself. It was just like, man, this is not going to happen for me.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. I mean,
you
because
know,
if someone older than you is telling you that you can't do it, I could so see that. Yeah.
yeah. So it took a lot out of me. And so what happened was I ended up giving up on that, and I took a job at Walmart. And so I'm working at Walmart, and this is how life happens, man. Like it's really interesting what happens to you when you give up on your dreams, how things can snowball. So
Mhm.
so I started working at Walmart, making $7 an hour. And what I realized when I started working at Walmart was there was a wide range of people that worked at Walmart, from, teenagers like me to people that were, in their
Yeah,
50s and
definitely.
up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they were working general roles and positions in Walmart, and I'm making $7. They probably were making $8 or something. Like it wasn't like this,
Yeah.
huge gap. And I would see people go in every day, and they would, this was their livelihood. Like this is what they were doing as adults for their life, like taking care of their families. And I just knew that that couldn't be me. Like I was like, man, I don't know what my path is, but I can't do this, right? Like this is not
We're
it.
still similar in that regard because that I think that is such a good observation as well because you will see people who are like 60 and they've been doing the same thing 9 to 5, same job for 50, like 40 years, and they just don't question it. I think that's really cool. So like when you saw that, was that like, man, I had to do, like they call it the rat race in a way. Like
Mhm.
you were like, I had to do anything to get out of this rat race. I cannot become one of these type of people.
Well, I knew in my mind, like, I couldn't do that. I just didn't know what to do. But
Mhm.
before I even got past that, what happens is like, so when your dream is crushed, right, and you don't have a path forward, you don't have a vision to get to where you're trying
Yeah.
to go, you become more, for in my case, more self-destructive, right? So now I'm angry all the time, right? So now I'm going places I shouldn't go, hanging
Yeah.
out with people I shouldn't be hanging out with,
Mhm.
getting into fights, getting guns pulled. Like I'm literally into action, right? Like for no reason, just because I feel like I don't have a path forward. So I'm just doing craziness, right?
Yeah.
I flipped my car 7 times. I rolled it, and like got
Oh,
out with
shit.
like literally like a scratch on me, right? Like I
Yeah.
felt like I could do anything, and I would do anything, and I was just trying my best to like just be self-destructive. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you what happened, like that really changed like a lot of how I saw things, man. Like I had a best friend I'm always hanging with my best friend. We always spending time together, or if I'm not with him, I'm with my girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
So I tell people alone time is very important, right? Very important. I
Mhm.
would never be alone. But like this one particular day, I couldn't get a hold of him. My girlfriend was busy doing something, and I'm finding myself by myself, right? Like and so sitting there by myself, man, I almost like started throwing this pity party where I'm just
Yeah.
like, man, my life sucks. Why is this happening to me? Why am I, you know, like that thing. And then in the middle of kind of going through that, it was just like it came to me. It was like so clear, man. It was so
Yeah.
clear. It was like, well, who fault is this, right? Like who's in control of this? And I was like, man, like, can you do something about it? You
Mhm.
know, like it was just like that, right?
Yeah.
Do
You
something
like had a
about it.
call, you had like a calling in a way. It was like just a
Yeah, it was
sudden
just
epiphany of like, oh my God, this is my fault.
yeah, it was just so clear. It was just like, can you do something about this? What can you do about this, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm sitting there, man, and I was like, you know what? I can do something about this. Like I can, like
That's wonderful.
I tell people all the time, like I don't know if you guys used to play like pickup games outside, whether it was like basketball or
Yeah, we played
like
yesterday too.
so you know like when you're playing pickup like basketball or anything like that, you usually have like two team captains
Oh,
and
I know
people.
what you're gonna say because you always end up blaming the teammates if you lose. If you lose, you're like, my teammates are shit. It's their fault. I'm the best player on the court. But you can always do more. Is that what you're kind of trying to get at in a way?
No, I'm just talking about the process of it,
Oh shit,
right?
my bad, my bad.
So you have two people they're picking, right? I want him, I want him, I want him, I want
Yeah,
him,
yeah,
right? And until they have both teams have five, right? So in those scenarios, usually there's people that's out there that don't get picked,
yeah.
right? Like they're just on the side. They don't get picked. And so the game is playing and they just sitting on the side. And so that's where I was.
Oh, okay.
But I realized I'm like, oh, I can just pick myself. Like I can, like I don't have to wait for another human being to pick me,
Yeah.
right? Like so that was like that moment where it was really clear. And
Mhm.
so I went to Walmart, drove there, walked in, and quit. I was like, I'm not, I quit.
Yeah.
Here's your little vest back. Like I'm out. And the year before, when I was about to graduate, I heard about this junior college in Texas called Ranger, and they had a basketball team. But I never heard back from the coach, so nothing ever happened with it. So when I quit Walmart, I drove to the bus station and bought a one-way bus ticket to Ranger.
Oh, oh, okay. Yeah.
Now, I didn't want to buy a one-way bus ticket, but that's all I could afford. I couldn't afford the round trip, so I had to end up buying the one-way, right? So I'm like, I just need to get there. The problem is no one knew I was coming. I wasn't enrolled in the school, didn't
Oh
apply for
yeah,
the
you told us.
school, and school had already technically started, right?
Yeah.
So I buy this ticket, man, and I'm like, I'm going. And people always ask me like, well, why did you didn't just call the coach? And I was like, well, listen, I heard no so many times that I just wasn't willing to hear no again. I was
Yeah.
like, if he's gonna tell me no, he's gonna have to tell me to my face.
Yeah.
My face. He's gonna have to look me in my eyes and say, "Kid, get out of here." Right?
I mean,
And so
you took charge though. I think like that's an example of, I guess, not waiting for someone to give you the pass or someone to pick you in a way. You're just like, I'm gonna make my own luck in a way, just do it myself.
that's life, man. Like that. When I figured this out, this was my whole life changed. I mean, like literally, once I figured out, I didn't have to wait for someone to select me, pick me, call me, whatever it is. Right? My whole life changed. I get on this bus. It's a 2-day bus trip. I'm scared out of my mind because I've never been away from home. Right? I don't have a lot of money. I'm on this bus. I'm going across the country. Now, it was a blessing that I had a one-way bus ticket because I don't know if you ever rode on a bus before or been on a bus before, but if for those of us who've been on a bus, we know that bus is going to stop a million times, like
Yeah.
literally a million times before you
Yeah.
get to your destination. Every time that bus stopped, I wanted to get off and go back home,
Mhm.
but I only had a one way, so I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trapped. Like I have to keep going forward. And this is kind of like a theme in my life where it's like when we put ourselves in positions where we can't go back, we do extraordinary things because we have no choice.
You have no
It's like,
choice.
yeah, I can't go back.
That's
And
really
so,
interesting too. Yeah, I feel like because I think, for example, I mean, that's a really good example of the bus though, because you cannot go back. As soon as you
yeah,
step on that bus and you have that one-way ticket, you can't go back. And the farther you go too, the farther you get along with this bus trip, the more and more you cannot go back because you're always so far.
yeah. Because I mean, the distance keeps getting greater and greater,
Yeah, it
right?
keeps getting greater and greater and greater.
It's a really fascinating idea because anything that we want to do, once we commit to it and not allow ourselves to go back, I don't care if it's your diet, I don't care if it's
Mhm.
your business, I don't care what it is, right? Once you give yourself no option, I
Yeah.
cannot go back, that's it. It's done, right? You're gonna ultimately achieve that goal. And so 2 days on this bus, terrified out of my mind, make it to Ranger, get off the bus, have to call the school, right?
Mhm.
So I'm calling from a payphone, call the school, ask to speak to the coach. Guy comes on the phone, has no idea who I am. I just started talking, right? I'm
Yeah.
Corey Jackson. I'm a basketball
Oh,
player. I'm a
Pastor, yeah.
power forward. Like I'm just telling him all this stuff, right? I'm just going. And then he finally stops me and says, "Listen, man, I appreciate you calling and everything, but have your coach send me some film and I'll take a look at it and see if we want to recruit you." I said, "Well, coach, I can't do that, man. I'm at the bus station. I need a ride." Right. And so the guy, man, literally, his
Yeah,
name is Todd.
right.
He kind of goes silent on the phone. So I'm thinking the guy hung up. I'm like, oh my God, like I think he hung up. And then finally he says, "Well, how big are you?" Now at the time I was about probably 6'5", 185. And
Mhm.
so I said, "Well, coach, I'm 6'8". So I already knew that there's not a college basketball coach in America that will leave a 6'8" basketball player just sitting at the bus station, right? Like this guy had to come see. Like he had to at least come see, right? So he says, "Well, if you're not 6'8", I'm leaving you at the bus station." He hangs up. I'm like, oh God. And so the guy pulls up, man, and he gets out the car, introduces himself, shakes my hand. Then he looks me up and down. He says, "Close enough."
Yeah.
And then so he put me in the car. Now I'm thinking in my mind, like, oh man, finally something's gonna go my way, man. This is it, right? So we get in the car and he says, "Listen, man, I have 25 basketball players. And most basketball teams have 12 to 14 players." He
Mhm.
says, "Man, I have 25 basketball players. I don't have any room for another basketball player." He said, "I don't have any scholarship money. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do." He said, "But I'm gonna take you to the admissions office, see if they can at least get you into school, but I just don't have any room for you on my team."
Yeah.
So I'm like, here we go again. Like like I'm thinking like, man, I came 2 days, man, I don't have any money. I don't know what's gonna happen. And so he drops me off and just leaves me at the admissions office. And I'm in there and I'm like, well, at least I can try to get into school.
Yeah.
They get me into school. Obviously,
Okay.
they're like, well,
That's
you got
that's
to,
that's good luck though. You got in. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
one thing I question is, what was your family thinking at the time? This was all going down. Like your siblings, your mother, like what was going on? Like what were they thinking when you told them? Were you just like, I'm out, I'm gone, I'll be back with $1 million, like something like that?
yeah. Like my mom was absolutely not for it. She was just like, you don't need to go that far away. You don't know anybody. Like she really wasn't for it. She was a mother. Like she just like wanted to like protect me. My dad didn't say too much, but I felt like, my siblings, my parents, they were just, kind of like, man, this is crazy. Like this guy is just gonna just leave like this. And so to everybody that even my best friend, because I would try to get him to come with
Yeah,
me. I
your
was
best
like,
friend, and your girlfriend too.
yeah, like my girlfriend came to the bus station crying. My best friend, I told him like you should come too. Like we can do this together. And he was like, well, you don't even know anybody. You're not even in school. Like you're not,
Yeah.
like, and so I was like, yeah, but I'm going. And so everybody kind of was very skeptical because it was just so abrupt. Like I just like I'm going.
Yeah. But were you
But
known as the type of guy to be like, you were known as the type of guy to do this type of stuff in a way, or like everyone knew you had that mentality of you cannot be like the rest? Was that like, did people know about that? And that's why they're like, okay. Because I feel like for the average guy, like if some guy who works at Walmart, most people, if they saw just some random like 5'10" dude go out, try to get on a basketball team, like that's gonna be really weird. But if you see like
yeah,
some 6'5" guy who's known to have this type of mindset and wants to play in the NBA badly, I think that would be more like looked upon as a better like as good or in a way? Like, what were
Yeah,
people thinking?
yeah. I think people understood I had talent. But I'm from a small town, so it was still kind of looked at as like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
like this is nobody from where we're from do this. Like no, like we don't really that doesn't happen. Um, and so it was still kind of one of those deals. But once I got out of that admissions office and they got me into school, obviously they was like, well, we're gonna have how are you gonna pay for this, right? And I'm like, ah. And so I told him, I said, well, I have an idea, how I can get everything paid for. I'll come back and we'll get it all straight. I have no idea. No idea. so so I'm ended up walking out of the missions office and literally probably like a couple hundred yards away was the gymnasium. I could see it, right? And so I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go in there and see what's going on, right?
Ask for a job
So,
there, yeah.
so I walked to the gym, man, and they had the doors open. It's just, this is old school, man, old school gym. They have the doors open. I can hear the guys in there playing. I come in, sit down, I'm watching. And now this is back when, like, if you was a real basketball player, you always had basketball shorts on, like underneath your clothes, like whatever you had on, you had basketball shorts underneath. Like that's how it was, like every day, no matter what we did, we had on jeans, joggers, whatever, basketball shorts
That's really
underneath.
cool.
So I'm sitting there watching. Coach comes up and said, "Hey, the guys just playing pickup, basically free play." He's like, next game if you want to play, go out, feel free to play.
Mhm.
So I come out my pants. I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm 2 days on the bus, so I'm if you ride on a bus, you just kind of stiff, and
Like just the
in my mind, I'm like, I just need to get out here on this court, right? Like this is my only chance. Like so this is the part of the story that like just really like solidified things for me. I go on the court. We start to play. No one knows me. So I already know in my mind, no one's going to pass me the ball. Basketball. Like if you don't know, like
you
this
don't know the
new guy,
player like it
so
does.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We're not gonna pass this guy the ball. And so I'm on the court though for like 30 seconds before something happens. Our team gets the ball. A guy on my team, I'm like calling for the ball, like ball, ball, ball,
Yeah.
ball. He, for whatever reason, decides to take this horrible, awkward looking 3-point shot, shoots the ball, and the ball goes like high in the air. So I know, like, I was like, okay, I probably need to go get the rebound because he's not going to make this shot.
Mhm.
So I start pushing into the paint to go get the rebound. Ball's flying through the air. Ball hits the back of the rim, pops up. I run, jump. Now, as I jump, there's 3 other guys like battling me for position. So we all jump. Now we in the air. And like I'm just like in my mind, I'm like, I felt like my
I
life
have to get this
depended on
ball.
the
You
ball.
have
Like
to get this ball.
I have to get this ball. And so I'm reaching, and the ball was so high that when I got the ball, it was just my fingertips. I didn't even really like firmly grab it. It was like my fingertips grabbed the ball.
Yeah.
And then just so happens I'm directly in front of the rim. And so now I slam it back in like really quickly. Boom. And
If
I'm
you
hanging
dunk it on top of everyone, that's
and
sick.
I'm hanging on the rim and I'm swinging and the other guys are falling down. And so when I come down, I look up and the coach is sprinting onto the court,
Mhm.
right? And he has like t-shirts in his hand. He was like, everybody stop, nobody moves, right? And so I'm like, okay. He said, listen, I don't know why you came here, but I'm glad you did. He's like, you don't have to worry about anything. We want you
That's
on the team.
sick.
And that was it, man. Like that day, that's when like that dark cloud like removed because I couldn't see anyway until like something good happened.
Yeah.
Finally, something good happened. Like after all this time, and from that moment on, man, I was locked in. We were at a small junior college. We didn't have any strength and conditioning coaches. We didn't have the best facilities. I created my own weightlifting program. I was even training my teammates. Like I was committed. I was like fully committed. Girls
Mhm.
wanted to date. I'm like, hey, you got to meet me in the gym.
Yeah, you
Like
could,
this is
yeah.
gonna be.
Get
And
these rebounds.
yeah, like this was like I was so tapped in, Rohan. Like it was no stopping me. It was no stopping me, man. That
Yeah.
one opportunity, I just knew I had to seize it.
Something I'm curious about though, actually two things is that one, like what you say that you were so locked in, and I think when most people think of people who are locked in, you think you associate an idea of isolation and loneliness with it, because you're on this path and you have this mission and purpose, and no one around you seems to really understand it. Everyone like does very other things like clubbing. They want you to come drinking with them. They want you to like miss out on your studies and your practice to go hang out. But you're so locked in and focused on this mission. How did you push away all the distractions from your goal and your purpose? Was it because your why for doing this was just so powerful that anything besides the goals that you had in your mind just didn't matter? Like, what was it that was keeping you away from the distractions?
Yeah, like I knew what it felt like to not be wanted, man. I knew what it felt like to not feel like you have any control. And now I finally have a little bit of control. I finally have, a path to follow. And what was really interesting about that, I came to that school, the skinny kid, and I started working my butt off. And my teammates started gravitating to me because they start seeing my body change. They start seeing my performance change. And like I said, I'm training those guys. Like
That's like
we're
some Kobe Bryant type shit. That's like some Kobe shit.
it was just, I mean, it was unbelievable, man. It was unbelievable. And I started the other thing that happened to me too is I started to become a different person.
Mhm.
Like I never was, quote unquote, a leader. I would just do my own thing. But like I started to develop leadership skills.
Like your
I started,
identity was changing in a way.
and it was just a natural progression for me.
Mhm.
Um, and so by year two, man, I was one of the top junior college players in the in the
Oh
in
yeah,
the,
you told me this.
in
Yeah.
the state. Ended up getting a scholarship to the University of Nevada,
Mhm.
which I was told I would never be a Division I basketball player.
Mhm.
Ended up being a Division I basketball player,
Wrong.
and end up getting there. It was so many lessons that I learned along the way, which was so powerful. For instance, when I got there, I was just a basketball player.
Mhm.
So literally, I just get on the court and play basketball. It was no real,
Like deeper meaning in it. Like by
yeah,
meaning, there's no deeper meaning.
it was no deeper meaning, but it was no real direction in like this is who you are as a basketball player, right?
Okay.
Like if you think about like your identity as a basketball player, I didn't have an identity as a basketball player. I
Mhm.
was just a
Yeah,
guy playing
okay.
basketball.
Do you think that separated you? Because we talked about this earlier, right? With guys who are in the NBA, they treat it like a 9 to 5 in a way that they just go out and do their work and play basketball. Do you think because instead of you, do you think because you treated basketball instead of as a job, but like your identity and who you are and your obsession, that's what got you above the competition versus everyone else who's just also genetically gifted, but just treated it like a mere basketball game? Do you think that was the biggest difference between you and everyone else who wasn't so highly ranked?
Yeah, I mean, that was totally the biggest difference because honestly, if I'm being honest, I wasn't as skilled as I should have been because I didn't have access to the type of training. I didn't have the type of competition a lot of these guys grew up playing against. Like, so I wasn't. What was carrying me was just my work ethic and my toughness and my willingness to just keep going. Right.
That mindset.
Yeah, like I'm 6'7", played power forward. I should have been a wing. Like I wasn't even supposed to be a power forward. Like so because I was a power forward just because of my skill set was so unpolished, right? And so I ended up but I was athletic enough to play
Yeah.
against bigger guys. And so I tell people all the time, like if you work on your gift is going to take you to the next thing. It's going to
Mhm.
take you to what's next. You don't even have to worry about what's next, right? So for me, when I'm playing at the University of Nevada, my next was the NBA. I was like, I have to get to the NBA. Ended up having a really good senior year. Was one of the top rebounders in the nation. Averaged a double double. Came out, didn't get drafted.
Mhm.
Played in the
That's
summer
surprising. That's
league.
really surprising.
Well, I was undersized. Like once again, like a lot of guys in our conference that I played against got drafted. So we were,
Really.
yeah. But I was undersized, so I wasn't the prototypical
I
power forward.
wonder how you were undersized though, because couldn't teams see that you were tall, you were skilled, and instead of putting you at this position where people are typically 6'11", why didn't they just switch you around and put you as like draft you, they put you as a wing? Like why wasn't that in discussion?
Yeah, that goes back to the skill set. So I
Um,
wasn't polished enough to play on the wing. I could play basketball. I could grab rebounds against anybody. I can actually play the game really
yeah.
well. But if you put me in a situation where I have to guard a guard, and then I have to guard a big,
Oh yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
so
I can see
so
that.
honestly, I didn't really have a position for my skill set.
Mhm.
And so here's what's really interesting. This is the part of the story that I really love. So I go to, but I'm still pursuing it, right? So I go to LA. We play in the summer league. I do well. Talk to NBA scouts, and they tell me exactly what I just told you. We
Yeah.
don't really have a position. I mean, you're a great athlete, but we can't see you fitting on our teams, right? And so I got offers to go to Europe to play. Now, this is going to tap into like how I think right now today, like my mentality right now today. I could not go to Europe. And people are like, man, they're going to pay you well. You should go. Like,
Yeah.
play at the highest level.
Mhm.
That's it. Like if I can't play at the highest level, I don't want to play. I don't
Really?
want to
Like,
play.
so you didn't even view the chances like going to Europe and then going to the NBA as an option. You wanted to go. It was like all or nothing, one or zero, nothing else.
I did not want to go. I want to play at the highest level. I do not believe that this is the path. I'm not doing it. Right.
Mhm.
So people are like, you're crazy. Right. And so I'm like, well, I still have to finish school, so I'm just gonna go back to school, right? And me going back to school was really not about finishing school; it was just about me figuring out how to get to the NBA. I'm like, I gotta figure out how to get there,
Yeah.
right? And so here's where the story really gets interesting because I get back on campus. Somehow the football coaches heard that I was back on campus. So one of
Mhm.
the football coaches found me and said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry you didn't make it into the NBA, but I think you've been playing the wrong sport."
That's so funny though, because like yes, the entire time, all the risks you made were for the wrong sport. It was that's really really cool. The fact that you were able to make it that far too, and they
And
receive the potential. That's so interesting.
And that's why I said your gift is going to take you to the next thing. It doesn't matter. Like you're gonna always life is gonna always help you autocorrect, right? Like you go. It doesn't matter. You're like, I'm gonna start this business. Great, start the business. Whatever happens with that business, it's gonna take you to where you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just gonna happen that if you're really doing it, right? And so it autocorrect me, and it was like, no, football, right?
Yeah.
So the guy says, man, you should come out, play football, And so I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I go out, play that semester. Didn't even do anything crazy. Didn't even have like no crazy stats. And then like, only played 12 plays. Only played 12 plays in college football, right? Not games, plays, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of it, I'm thinking like, okay, that was a cool experiment, but now let me get back to
Yeah.
basketball, right? So I'm at my apartment one day, and you know how they have the pro day for the football players. So they have
Yeah.
the combine, and then they have the pro day at the schools.
Mhm.
And so I'm not really planning to go to the pro day, but I'm at my apartment, and my phone rings. It's one of my coaches. He was like, "Man, where you at?" I was like, "Well, I'm at the apartment. What's going on?" He's like, "I got 30 NFL scouts up here asking about you."
Oh my God, dude.
I was like,
The
"What?"
odds of that happen. That's crazy. That
The
is
guy
crazy.
said, and here's I'm gonna show you how life really, really works and how it autocorrects us and put us where we're supposed to be. He says, you need to get up here right now, right?
Mhm.
I walk into this room, they're in the weight room. So I walk in, all these scouts are in there. As soon as I walk in, they know who I am. They're like, Corey, how you doing? Like they're touching me and everything. They're like, man, you look good, like just, and I'm like, like what's going on?
It's surreal in a way. Like, damn, I went from no one wanted me to play professional to having 30 people that wanted my freaking autograph and stuff.
100%, right? And so I go and I do this workout, kill the workout. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm killing the workout, right? Like, oh man, I'm doing all these drills, but I really don't know. But at the end of the workout, you feel like you did well. You kind of looking at the scouts to kind of see their reaction,
Mhm.
and they like just literally just walked away, like they didn't even say anything. So I was like,
Really?
oh, man, like I must have like
You must
really
have messed
bombed it.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm walking out the field, all drenched in sweat and everything, and just like my mind is just kind of like, man, it's confused.
Mhm.
And my phone ring. I answer my phone. It's an agent. This guy said, "Hey Corey, how you doing? I'm an NFL agent. I want to represent you. I heard you killed your workout today." Like literally, I'm literally walking off the field. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So I hang up with this guy. Phone rings again. Another agent. Now my phone is just blowing up, and it's
Oh my
just
God.
unbelievable.
That's
It's just, I
crazy.
mean, literally unbelievable, right? So you remember I told you that life autocorrects.
Mhm.
So contrast. When I played basketball, I was a 6'7" power forward that was not prototypical, didn't really have a position. Football, I was a 6'7" defensive end, 268 pounds, prototypical. Every scout was like, "You are the prototypical defensive end." Like I went from not having a place in the sport to being a prototypical like size,
Like
speed,
a top-notch prospect.
everything, right? Just like that.
Mhm.
And so my agent tells me like, hey, you kind of came on late, so you may get drafted in the later rounds, fifth round. Miami is looking at you, sixth round, and then maybe even seventh round. Like, but those last rounds are going to be the rounds that somebody's going to take you in, right? So now I'm like, I don't care what round. This is unbelievable, right? And so I'm watching the draft. Fifth round goes by, nobody calls my name. Sixth round goes by, nobody calls my name. And so the team that was going to draft me, it was the team that was going to draft me in the seventh round, traded away they pick. So now I don't get drafted in the seventh round. So
Yeah.
I'm like, so now I'm just sitting there like literally like, and this is how fast it happens, right? The draft ends, I'm sitting there, and in my mind, I'm thinking, man, this just sucks. This is crazy.
Life is
But
so
like,
unfair. Yeah.
but as I'm thinking it, like in real time, as I'm thinking this, my phone starts ringing.
Mhm.
Like, who is this? Answer the phone. This guy comes on the phone, so excited. Hey, Corey, how you doing? I'm a representative of the Cleveland Browns. We want you to be a part of the team. We got your agent on the other line. He's working out the deals to your contract right now. Like literally,
As you're sitting there, watch the draft end.
just like that.
What was
Just
that
like that.
feeling like, man? Like, did you feel like such a sense of relief? Like, man, all my hard work, that bus ticket, all the chances that I made, like, it's all worth something now. Like, it was all worth it.
It was kind of like the opposite reaction, more of how I almost missed it.
Oh, so
Like like my mind went to like how I gave up on my dream, how I was at Walmart, how I almost really like really went down a path, a dark path of
Mhm.
life. Like how close I came. Like that's why like I have empathy for so many people that get on the wrong path, because something can push you in a direction and you can just go down and spiral down.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that, like, man, you almost missed all of this, right? And then I became so grateful that I was able to break free of that, and it was just one of the most amazing experiences I ever had in my life. My parents at the time, they didn't really know that I was even a prospect, serious prospect, because I didn't want to get their hopes up. And
Yeah.
so once I got that phone call, I called them. They went bananas.
Yeah, I could only
Like
imagine your parents. Like, I
it
feel like
was,
if my kid told me that he got drafted for the NFL, I'd lose it. Especially if he
uh,
just went out of the house like a year ago.
it was crazy. It was crazy. And my mom, she couldn't even speak. I got four other siblings, so they were all just losing it. And it was one of those moments where, you just get so emotional, and like I said, because how tough it was, how hard it was. Like I had to fight for every inch.
Yeah.
And I learned something about life along the way. Life is going to autocorrect you if you keep going as hard as you can. Like a lot of people give up before they get to that autocorrection where life says, yeah, but this is where you really need to be, right? And then you see it because it becomes so clear. You're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, how did I miss this? Like, this is where I'm supposed to
That's
be.
really interesting
Um,
because it goes back to the idea of like people quit before the success actually comes, or they quit way too early. Like they won't get immediate results and then they'll quit. I think for you, like the fact that like I have a question actually. What after you stopped, didn't get drafted for the NBA, let's say that the football coach didn't come up to you. What would have been your plan after that? Like, would you have just given up on sports altogether and go down a different path, like a business route? Like, what would have been your route?
my plan would have been to train as hard as possible and get back into like going to the NBA and working out with these scouts. That'd have been my plan, right? My plan would just like just work on your game like crazy, get back out there, get in front of the scouts again, and and that's not a bad plan. I tell people whatever your plan is, it's not a bad plan.
As long as
Just
you're doing
know
something, yeah.
just know that if you're doing something with like all that you have and you're doing it with everything in you, something good is going to happen. It may not be the thing that you thought it was going to be,
Yeah.
but something good is going to happen. And that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. Like we don't have the, we can't see, right? Like all we
Yeah.
know is what we know. And
Yeah.
so we just have to go as hard as possible for the thing that we want. And life is going to open up the path for us as long as we're doing that. And that's what happened with me with football. Like I had no idea I would play in the NFL. I had no idea. And when once that lane opened up for me, it was just so clear. It was just like, wow. Like everything became not necessarily easy, but easier. It was
It's
like,
easier to
oh,
see as well because like you could, I think for the NBA, like the vision seemed possible, but it seemed way harder compared to the NFL. I
oh,
mean, one thing I also want to comment is that I feel like a lot of people they may be genetically gifted, like as you were, but they don't they I guess adapt a mindset of because they're so genetically gifted that everything will be handed to them, all the opportunities will be handed to them on silver platter. What do you have to say to those type of people who, let's say, are born 6'7" and do super well and are freakishly athletic, like are like given LeBron genetics, but don't have that work ethic? Like, what would you say to the people that choose to take it easy? Like, what would you say?
yeah, I've seen it my whole career. I've seen it, man. I've seen guys who didn't have to train that hard, didn't have to, but where they lose out at is their attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it gets hard. See, that's the thing that like you can't account for. Like I used to dominate people because my will was just that, right? Like I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna keep going.
Don't
Like
lose, yeah.
I'm coming, right? And so that alone would mentally break people. And so the genetics, obviously, if you get the genetics, you 80% there, right? Like I mean, you can, but if you don't level up mentally, you're gonna underachieve. Like I can live with my career. I can live with, the circumstances and situations that I've created for myself because I know even now today, I overachieve. Like I know like I'm gonna go past whatever my limitations is
Yeah.
or whatever those limitations are because I just know like I'm gonna do so much more than the average person. And
I,
I'm not gonna allow for I'm not even gonna let myself down. I'm not gonna let myself down. And so wherever it stopped, even when my NFL career stopped, I wasn't ready for it to end, but I could be cool with it.
yeah.
Because I'm like, what I went further than I ever thought I would, and I went further than people that had more advantage than I did, right? Like
That's a really
so
cool feeling too.
I knew I overachieved. I knew like I pushed it. I gave it everything. I gave it everything, and that's how we live with ourselves. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, did I give it everything? Because think about it. I'm only going to be 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 for one time. I'm only going to be in my 20s one time. So at 44, if I look back in my 20s and be like, man, I didn't give him up. Like I have to live with that for the
Yeah.
next however long, right?
It's like the you either live with the fear of regret or the fear of discipline or like the pain of discipline and pain of regret. And I one thing I also wonder is that do you think that because you had such a powerful why, like your why was so important to you, like getting to the NFL and proving everyone wrong and being someone who left that hometown and did something crazy, like providing for your family, your siblings, do you think because that why was so important to you, that's what like I guess snowballed into you having such a great mindset? Like was that the deciding factor or was it something different?
I think it's a combination of things. I think honestly, I think I born unreasonable. I just think that I was unreasonable from the beginning. Like
Yeah,
so even when I
it was
was a little kid,
genetically like you always had
yeah,
that kind of mindset.
yeah. When I was a little kid, like I played against the big kids, and I thought I was supposed to win every time. Like I just losing
It was
was
like expected,
unacceptable.
yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't realistic, and I think that was the key to it, right? Like we can't live our lives being realistic, right?
Yes, dude.
Because the reality changes based upon what we do.
Hmm.
But if we accept the current reality, just like I said, I was playing against my cousins, they were older than me, right?
Yeah.
The realistic thing to say was they're bigger than me, stronger than me, faster than me. I can't beat them, right?
Hmm.
That's realistic. But because I thought that I'm supposed to win, it made me play as hard as possible every
Hmm.
single time. And what happened was my ability it expedited my ability. And
Yeah.
so now at 12, they're still older than me. They're still bigger than me, right? But why I can beat them now?
Yeah.
Because it was unacceptable. I did not accept the fact that I'm supposed to lose to them. And so we have to, like, there's things in our lives that we just have to just not accept. Like, if this is unacceptable, I will not, even though I'm going through the pain and the struggle of losing or whatever it is,
Mhm.
this is not acceptable. I'm coming back tomorrow and we're gonna figure this out. And I'm telling you, it's the person that's unwilling to relent what they're trying to accomplish that's going to actually do it. I always tell people, I say, I growing up, if you ever been in a fist fight, right,
Yeah.
and fighting someone, you're not afraid of them. You're like, man, I'm not afraid of you. But you know that person is you're gonna have to fight that person again tomorrow.
Yeah.
You kind of be like, well, let's not necessarily fight. I mean, I'm not afraid to fight you, but I don't want to fight you every day.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's how these obstacles are for us in our lives. They come up, but they don't want to fight us every day.
Yeah.
Like that, like that's why like the people that as soon as something happened, they quit. Like that's the easy way out, right? That's the easy way
It's
out.
excuses in a way because I mean they can say that they tried. Like, oh, I tried. I tried to start this business. I tried to make it to the NBA. But life is just unfair and happy. Like, I think it's like one thing I find really interesting about your story is the fact that not only that you made it to the NFL, but the fact that your entire journey beforehand, it was all dedicated towards a different sport. And like that 6 month, 5 month period of where you swapped from basketball to football, so much happened not because of your genetics or your skills. It happened because you were always putting the work in, and life handed it to you because it saw. I think God favors the people who work hard and are like actually trying to get there. If you, I feel as though if you're just very genetically gifted and you don't put the work in, you're not going to see the same opportunities as someone who may not be as genetically gifted, but that 20% of the mindset and the willpower will get them over the hump. Like, why is Michael Jordan the best versus Shaquille O'Neal? Like, Shaquille has better genetics, but Michael Jordan had that mindset. That's like the big difference in my opinion. And one thing I'm curious about now is that you made to the NFL, and we talked about this earlier before, but the players in there, I mean, I just messaged you on a whim, and you happen to be this type of person with a mindset that is very, very inspiring and very, very dominating in many realms because you just do not quit. You mentioned earlier that NFL players don't, not all NFL players have that. Like, in your experience, what are they like? Like, if they're not like this killer mentality of I need to be the best, then how do they get there and beat the other people who did have that mentality?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into that, right? Some of it, kind of like what you touched on, is some people are freakishly genetically gifted, and people can see that potential, and they're betting on that.
Mhm.
Um, some of it is politics, right? Like they went to the right school, they had the
Oh,
right
yeah.
coaches, they had, like so. There's a lot of things that go into it. But I will tell you, once you get to the level of the NFL, everybody's great athletes, right? Like everybody's big, strong, fast, or whatever for their position, they're
Yeah, the
skilled.
best of the best.
Um, and so the part that like sets you apart, like there's people that honestly are. Let me see if I can give you an example. Um, I'll give you an example, like someone like this is an old school dude, Lawrence Taylor, right?
I heard that, yeah.
Lawrence Taylor was this amazing linebacker that was just physically unstoppable.
Mhm.
Lawrence Taylor did drugs, game day, cocaine, drink, like he did whatever like on game
You do
day,
not
right?
care,
This
yeah.
guy like and would still dominate, like stay up all night, prostitute, all that. Like he would speak openly about this, right?
Just did not care.
But he physically was so much better.
Mhm.
There's very few people in the world that's like that, right? So if you're not that guy, right, you're not that person, then you're not gonna like. He probably would have had an even more like he had a Hall of Fame amazing career. Like imagine what his career really would have been like if he didn't do all the
You
extra
know what,
curriculum.
Shaquille too, because like he used to drink the day before and stay up all night. If he just hit those free throws, he could be so much better.
And
You just
so
feel
it's always like you just have to know, like, it goes past sports for me. Like my mentality is something that I need to be driving myself to something great.
Mhm.
I can't like I was telling one of my friends this before, like I'm always in the state of what's the word I'm looking for? Like I'm always
Like you're always
frustrated.
hungry.
No, like frustrated, right? Like I'm always frustrated because I want more, right? And
Mhm.
it's just like these little things and that's the separation. That's the separation, right? Like that's why I say certain things are unacceptable. If you can accept, you do a interview, you do a podcast episode, and it's not, produced the way it needs to be. And then you can be okay with that, then that's something that like to me, like I
I
can't be
can't.
okay. Like
Yeah,
if it's something,
same thing with me too. That's so similar. It hits home because in the beginning, like these first 4 episodes, I realized that the production quality is not where I want to be. Like, I don't know how to edit as well. I don't have the great video cameras and quality. Like,
yep,
I think that's what separates the people who really, really make it versus the people that just try. Because that our concept of being frustrated, you can't. I think being content is such a dangerous thing
it
because you
is.
will accept your reality and you won't keep pushing forward. Like that's why I think so many people give up the long term for the short term
For
because they
sure.
accept the short term paycheck of this and this and this and this, but they don't keep pushing and fighting for something more. Like they will accept a short term job, but the long term financial stability and independence is they just don't care about it because they're accepting what they have right now.
And it's hard, right? Like mentally, psychologically, it is difficult. It's just like buying a one-way bus ticket is difficult psychologically, right? Like, man, if this doesn't work out, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, think about that. Like, that's a position of anguish. You're like, man, like, how can
Yeah,
you be at peace? Just
because
like I was.
if that coach said no, it would have been like the story would have been very, very different.
Yeah, that's why the bus ride was so agonizing, right? So think about it. Who wants to take that bus ride? It's a it's a hard
It's
bus
a
ride.
2 hour bus ride, stopping a million times with like a 1% possibility. Like in your head on that bus ride, were you just like replaying like different scenarios that could play out when you got there? Were you just like, okay, if I get them, the coach says no, I'll do this. If he says yes, if he says like, what were you thinking on that bus ride?
I wasn't even thinking that far. I was just like, I just need to get there. I just need to get there.
Mhm.
Like not even like I need to get there and I'm gonna do something amazing. I need to not figure out how not to get there. Because
Yeah.
every time that bus would stop, I was like, man, if I could call somebody, maybe somebody can like send me
Yeah.
some money, or like. And so I just had to like stay on it. But that's the point that we're making. Like in our lives, whatever it is that we want, it's going to be mentally agonizing because we don't have the answer at the end. We don't know it's going to work. We don't have the guarantee.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee. The reason, like kind of what you were speaking to, the reason why people settle in their lives because they take the guarantee, right? Or the perceived guarantee. I'm going to take the perceived salary. I'm going to take the perceived career or whatever. Like that thing is going to give me the security and safety that I want. They take that over that agonizing bus ride.
Like the risk.
Yeah,
That's so true. That's very, very accurate because I don't know. It's so hard to say, you know what? I'm not gonna do what 99% of the other people do. I'm gonna do the 1%. Even when that especially when that 1% is like 100 times more difficult than what the
yeah,
90% are doing. Like that is so mentally draining and anguishing because there's so much self-doubt that goes into it. Like, man, what if this is just a crazy dream? Like, what if I'm not genetically there? Like, what if I'm not intelligent enough? Like, so much self-doubt. But I find it so cool that it was just one moment that happened with you on that basketball court that really cemented it. And I wonder, were there any other like key events of where you failed besides like the draft and I guess the all the stuff back at home? Like, were there any times that you failed and you were like, man, this is it? Besides like those other times, like did you ever get like crazy output on the court? And then if you did fail, then like how'd you bounce back? Like, what was your mindset when you bounced back?
yeah. Like I said, it was hard the whole way through. And I think that was the gift. The gift was it never got easy, right?
Yeah,
So I dunked the ball on these guys. The coach wants me on the team, and then I get on the team, and then I sit on the bench. behind a guy that I'm better than, right? And
Yeah.
so I didn't like connect the dots earlier, but that's why I started that weightlifting program and started training that way. Like, because I'm like, it's no way, like this guy, I'm better than this guy.
Yeah.
I'm better than this guy. Like, not like I think I'm better than this guy. I'm literally in practice, and this guy's like, come on, man, take it easy on me. Like, that much better than this guy, right? But he was the bigger recruit. I was the guy that showed up on the bus, you
It's
know.
politics. The politics
Yeah,
right
that's
in
the
favor.
way it works, right? But what, like, when I locked in and I was like, I still needed to get better anyway.
Yeah.
And so I told myself, I'm like, this work on you, man. Like, and this is something very difficult for people to do because we're looking at everybody externally and saying, I should have that position, I should have that role. And then we're not willing to do more than everybody else. And so when I made up my mind, like, I'm gonna do more than everybody else for me, because I don't know if I'm gonna be here, but I'm gonna be somewhere. And
Mhm.
so when I started building my body and extending my game and getting better, my teammates saw that, and that kind of started sparking something in them. And then my coach noticed it, right? And then I made up my mind. Like, this is one of the things that people underestimate because it's so elementary. Like, once you make up your mind,
Like the
this
path
is
you want to take.
it's over. Like I made up my mind. I was on the bench. I remember, and I was always frustrated because I'm like, man, they put me in. Like, they'll put me in. I might score 4 points back to back, and they take me out the game, right? So I'm like,
That's so stupid.
and I remember when I committed 100% to everything. I said, the next time they put me in the game, they're not going to be able to take me out. That's all I said to myself. They're not going to be able to take me out. They put me in the game. I went nuts, grabbing rebounds, blocking shots, scoring. I played the complete game. And at the end of that game, I knew, everybody knew. They was like, man, this guy he's the real deal. And the coach actually pulled me in and said, man, I should have saw this. I should have had you playing more. And from that day on, I started every game. I
Mhm.
started every game.
When
But
you
we
started, did you let that get to your head though? Like when you started, did you start to slow down and be like, "Man, I got it, man. I got the form that I don't need to keep working harder." Like, did you slow down at all, or did you accelerate?
No, like it was like rocket fuel, man. It made me like want more and more
That's
and
great.
more.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I could go to the NBA right then. Like, I was like, I could, like it really like pushed me to like go even harder. And I think this is the beautiful thing about life, man. Like, we're talking about sports that when you think about sports, we're physically limited to whatever our best abilities are. No matter who you are, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, you're limited to whatever your best abilities are. And at some point, those abilities are going to go away, right? But the things that are built in you psychologically and mentally can go on forever, right? Like, you can take those things and allocate it to a business, or you can allocate it to a career, or where you can take those very things and allocate it. And once you take, and I tell people this all the time, I said, I got the cheat code, because I know for a fact, once you take the physicality out of something,
Mhm.
so now it ain't about who can run fast, who can jump the highest,
You can work the hardest. You can, yeah.
who can stay, just like the one saying that Will Smith had. He was like, you may be smarter than me, you may be better than me, all these things. He said, but it's one thing that I do know, that if you and I get on a treadmill at the same time, you're getting off first,
Mhm.
or I'm gonna die. Right? Like
Yeah.
like it's that thing, right? Like, it's and people think that's crazy, but it's this, in a lot of ways, it's really the only way. Like, I'm talking
Only
about how.
way like when you want to get to that level, you have to have that. Like that's why I think a lot of players, like top-notch players, they always think they're the best. Like all like the top 10 NBA guys, they all think that they're the best player on that court, no matter what. I think you
Yeah.
didn't have that because I think that self-confidence gives you so much more, like it improves your ability in a way. Like when you're on the basketball court, when you're playing in college, were you always saying to yourself, man, I'm the best motherfucker on this court. Like no one can guard me, no one can block me. I am like God on this court right now. Was that always
I,
your
I,
mindset?
I wouldn't say the best. I would say I'm the baddest, right? Like, because
Got it.
I knew that there were people that were just more gifted. So, but I'm like, I'm
Really?
a bad dude. Like, so
Oh, yeah, that's the difference.
when I'm playing against those guys, like literally playing against those guys, I would like I'm crushing them. I'm strong. I'm you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna give you everything. They didn't like playing against me, because I was physical. I played hard. I knew what I was good at and I stuck to it. Right? I'm a bad dude. I'm a problem for you tonight. I'm gonna be a problem for you the whole night, the whole way through. And they knew that. And I
That's so
think that
cool.
and those are the things that we take with us, man. I'm gonna be a problem. No matter what it is. I'm in the staffing and recruiting industry. I'm a problem for this industry.
Mhm.
I'm a problem for this
That's so.
industry.
One
Right?
thing
Like,
David Goggins, like in his book, he talks about like taking souls in a way. Like, were
yeah.
you taking souls on that court? Like, were you taking these kids' souls? Like, I would destroy you. Like, I
Um,
would take your soul.
I would literally, we would be like on the free throw line, like, and someone's shooting a free throw, and I would tell the guy on the other team, like, he misses, I'm getting this rebound. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, I'm getting the rebound. And it will happen because at that point, they don't know what to do. They don't know
That's
what
so
this is
funny. I can
happening.
just imagine that too. Like, he's
Yeah.
just like, what is this dude saying right now? And then you just like,
And so it's just amazing what we can do when we mentally tap in. And we have to show up every day. I tell people like my definition of relentless
yeah,
is showing up until the results you desire join you. That's it. Like there's no other, like I'm gonna show up until that.
yeah.
You can't stop someone like that. You can't stop a person like that.
You
No
can't
matter
know.
what it is, you can't do it.
Because they'll always keep coming back, no matter the failure, no matter. Because I think the most discouraging thing that people stop the most frequently when they experience failure. Like, they'll fail once and they'll stop, or they'll fail once or twice or three times or four times that they'll stop. But you never know, like, it could be right around the corner that you get it, like the fifth time you get it or the sixth time you get it. And I don't know, it's just this, it's sad because you see people who will try once and stop.
Yep.
And a lot of people who are at that high level know, like, okay, you can't just do that, man. Like, you have to keep going. And it's even more frustrating when you know they have potential. Like, right now, I'm not sure, like, your kids or your sister or your kids or your siblings, like, I know that if you were to see them fail once and they stop, you would be like on their ass and be like, no, you gotta like keep going. But it
Oh yeah.
sucks that some people just they don't have that. It's like, either, I honestly at this point, after everyone I've talked to who's like a very high achieving person, I I I feel like it's genetic. Like, there is something genetic that you have to have that like level. Like, even with David, like David Goggins says that, oh, he wasn't, like, he didn't have that, but I think you need to, and it's something genetic, but you have to unlock it. Like,
Yeah.
David Goggins got to unlock when he, whatever. I bring him up so much. I'm like his biggest fan, I guess. But
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. Like I would say this, I don't know if it's genetic or not, right?
because
But
I
I
have no idea. Yeah.
but I do know that you have to get to a point where, like I said before, this is unacceptable. I don't think people in life get to that point where they just, this is unacceptable. This will not be my life. This
Why
is
do you think
not.
that is?
I just think that, like, if you can find a little bit of comfort, then that's it. Like just a little bit of comfort, then that's it. And I think most people live their lives with just that little bit of comfort. All right, it's Friday. The day is Friday. It's Friday. I get the weekend, and then I'm gonna go back to hell.
But
Right?
why don't people
That,
recognize the pattern though? Like, I feel like there's very clear patterns. For example, with someone who drinks, I don't drink. Like, I feel like with people who drink on the weekends and then miserable the weekdays and drink on the weekends, like, why don't people see the patterns and see where that's gonna take them? Because I feel like so many times I'll hear people who work jobs that they hate, that they absolutely hate, because they, in college, where they were like the frat boy, the frat girl, they didn't, the sorority girl. Like, why don't people see the patterns and do anything about them? In your opinion, like, why isn't someone to see, like, oh, I'm doing this, this will get me to Y? Like, why don't people see that?
I think it's easy for us as humans to justify, why we do what we do, right?
Mhm.
Like it's a protective technique for us, right? Otherwise, you go crazy. Like so for me, I I don't justify it, so I have to keep going for it because if I stop, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna be like, man, I'm gonna kill myself, like not literally, but like
I
beat
know what you know.
myself.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, because I know I'm supposed to be going in that direction. I
Mhm.
think people get that little they give themselves that justification so that they can survive,
Mhm.
so that they can make it to the next thing, the next day or the next week, the next month.
So I guess it's a question of excuses then. And like, I don't know. For me, when I go to the gym, I remember this one time that I was doing pull-ups and I just got to 12 and my goal was to go to failure. And I stopped at 12 and I left the gym and I was in my car. And then instead of leaving, I drove back and I was like, I have to get to failure on this. I cannot I can't not get to failure on this. I have to
Yep.
go up and win. Why do people, in your opinion, make excuses and say, oh no, I have to do this, I have to do that, do why? Like, do you think it's because they don't have the path in mind? Like, I feel like, but then even then, I'm curious because people will have the goal of like, you know what, man, I'm gonna get in shape, I'm gonna work out and get on a diet and get all this shit. But then a week later they stop. They relapse on like whatever. Like, why do people relapse or just make excuses and fail on the path that they may have already set in their heads?
So I'll speak on like what you were saying about the pull-ups, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't realize that like they get confused between success and failure, right? Like failure a lot of times is the success, right? So for instance,
Preach, amen, preach there.
I tell people all the time, failure is at the top, right? Like failure is at the top. So in the example you gave, I need to get to failure. We don't think we should be thinking like that in everything we do. Your podcast, your business, your I need to get to failure, meaning I can't go no further. There's no like there's I can't do another one,
Yeah.
right? Can I do 3 episodes a day? Can I do 5 episodes a week? Can I do like I
Yeah.
need to get to failure, right? And if we're playing the game to get to failure, like for me, how many clients can we service? How many recruiters can we bring on? How I need
Yeah.
to get to failure because when you get to failure, failure is going to be up here.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan sold the Charlotte Hornets for 3 billion, right? I
Mhm.
can't do this anymore. 3 billion,
Yeah.
right? Like failure is going to be way up here.
That's an interesting take though too, because like the idea of trading to failure, like Tom Platz would be, I'm not sure if you know who that is, but he'll be like, you need to achieve failure. It's not like, oh man, I failed. It's like I achieved failure.
Yeah.
I achieved failure.
Because we try to save ourselves from that, right? Like so in our mind, if we know like okay, I may have another one in me, but I feel like this is I'm
It's
this is
enough. Like
yeah,
I'm
this
content. I'm
is
content.
enough. Yeah, this is enough. But it's not enough. It's
Mhm.
not enough. And if it's in you, you're not gonna accept it. You're not gonna accept. Just like you said, you turn around, went back to the gym. You're like, yo, I gotta get to failure. Like
I gotta get this pull.
that's where success is, man. Like that's what success is. Getting to failure. My years in the NFL, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, I gotta get to failure. All right, I exhausted it.
Mhm.
Next thing,
I mean,
right?
what about burnout in a way? Then do you think that like I'm not sure. I'm very young. I'm like 18. Like is
Mhm.
burnout and what is burnout in your opinion? Because when I view burnout, I think that's something that it's an excuse in a way. I initially viewed it as an excuse, but I'm
I'll
starting
tell
to
you.
say,
I'll tell you this. In my opinion, this is just my opinion. You only burn out on things you don't like. Like if you hate something, like for instance, when I play basketball, I play every day,
yeah, because it's like with the
every day.
gym, I'll have no problem going every day. But like when it's with
Yeah,
something else, I'll be like, oh my god, I can't.
yeah. Like I literally would like play every day, and then I didn't want to not play.
Mhm.
Right? I did not want to not play. But when you're doing things you don't necessarily like love or care about enough or mean enough to you, then you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't, like it's just, and not to say that you don't have moments where you feel tired or what, like that's just normal stuff.
Yeah.
But for like burning out, like I don't ever want to do this again,
Mhm.
then that wasn't your thing. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't your
Yeah.
thing. But if you can get
I
up
guess
every
that's
day,
success in a way too, because then you realize like, oh my god, I shouldn't be doing that.
yeah,
Last thing I really want to touch on, I feel like I said 45 minutes, it's been like an hour and 14, but one last thing I want to question on is just that you're very successful in many ways, like the athletics. the business. I mean, you got a lot of genetic gifts, right? But instead of using them as a way to form excuses of like, oh, I don't need to work as hard, I can do this, or whatever. What is your advice to people who may be young, people who are 18, 16, 17, 18, whatnot, 20, 21, whatever, and they want to get to a level of success that you have? What would you say, or what would be like your blueprint for those people?
Yeah. I think when you're that young, and if you can lock into this idea when you that like, so for instance, when I was 18, 19, 20, I could stay up all night, man. Like I would have a basketball game,
Mhm.
we'll play the game, we win. I want to hang out with my girlfriend. We stay up all night,
Yeah,
like just hanging out. Right. And so you have so much time and energy to do a lot. And so if you can convince yourself to say, I'm going to do this thing that I really want to do as much as possible and spend as much time as possible, it's going to change your life. Because by the time you get to 25, you're going to be at the, you'll be a beast. You'll be at a level of somebody that's 40 years old. You'll already be there at 25. Like how old are you right now?
me too.
At 18, first of all, you're doing all this right now. I'm telling you, when you do this and you go, I'm talking about hardcore for the next 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. 4 years. Give yourself 4 years all out, balls to the wall, everything I got.
Yeah,
By the time you're 25 and you told me a personal goal for as a financial personal goal,
mhm.
you probably have 10 times that. You
Seriously,
probably have
you really think that? I mean, because I feel like the goal that I told you is very realistic. Like, I just know what I'm doing. Like, what I'm doing now, I can definitely get there. But at 25, I feel like that's true. I feel like even honestly 30 times that. I think 30 is like a reasonable
I
number.
think I think you could I literally think that if the next 4 years, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna keep unlocking new
It's like
things.
new because what I realized is that once you start climbing one mountain, another mountain appears, and it's like a whole new journey, a whole new, like for this right now, just starting was a mountain, but now I have to figure out, okay, how the fuck do I edit? I have no idea how to use Premiere Pro. Like that's another mountain.
But you gotta think, like, all of this stuff happens. The reason why, like, when you asked me about being on the podcast, when I saw one, your age, how, like, I'm like, man, this is a young guy. He's ambitious. Like, he had the like courage to reach out to me.
Yeah,
Like this is somebody that I'm like, man, I love that, right? Like, this was something that made me excited because I'm like, I love connecting with people who are like that. Like, I see something different. And so I think, just back to kind of what you were saying, or like kind of my advice to young people is like, just put everything into what you're doing. Like, it's gonna take you where you're supposed to go. It's gonna take you where it's supposed to go, right? Like, it's just, if you can believe that, don't even worry about where that is. Just know, like, if I work as hard as possible, do all of these things that I'm currently doing, and keep getting better and better at them, a new door is going to open.
yeah,
A new opportunity is going to show up. And the next thing you know, you're going to be like, man, I can't believe that, because that's how it always is. When you hear people tell stories, you're like, man, I can't believe I'm here right now. I can't
yeah.
believe, like, but all they did was just kept working as hard as possible at the thing that they were doing, and then new things just kept opening up for them. And that's how the world works. It's not the secret mystery
Yeah,
mystique.
most people think it's like an inside secret that the only like gifted know, but I think even from your words, like you're saying, it's not a secret. Like it's a very obvious path that
Yeah,
just hard work and dedication. But that is such a difficult thing to like.
because what happens is that attracts the people. That's why the football coach could come up to me, right, and say, "Hey, I watched you play basketball.
Yeah,
You should go here," right? Like, he didn't go to every basketball player and say that, right? And so as you're doing what you're doing, people are seeing that, and
yeah.
they're looking at that, and they're like, "Man, it's something
That's
different about."
exactly what happened too recently too. I had this guy, I'll tell you about it later, but like that's exactly what happened with like people realizing their potential. Because one thing for me is that first semester at school, I applied for like several positions at school. I didn't get into them, but I viewed it as like a failure then. But really, that was a success because if I had gone into them, I wouldn't have been putting as much time into this, which is something that I actually wanted to do. So that failure in a way was a success, and then boom, failure, success. Oh my god.
Yeah. That's how it works, man. If you can take that perspective on life, like, as soon as one door closed, you just know. Like, okay, it's the next thing. Like it's the next thing. And I tell people all the time, like if you can get to next, right? Because what happens is we get injured when the door closed,
Mhm.
right? Our ego, or we
Yeah,
get
definitely. Is it?
depressed. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, like okay, that door closed. Just like I had a friend when we was young. He'd be like, man, we'll go out, hang out, or whatever, teenagers, and he'd be like, man, one girl tell me no, man, that don't even phase me, man. Like he was like, man, I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And he was like, but if it's like 100 girls, in a row, like that's gonna be a problem,
Yeah,
right?
that's gonna be a
But
problem. That's
like
something's wrong with you. Yeah.
it's the mentality of your psyche. Okay, that one no, man, you gotta shrug that off, man. Like they don't know. They don't know you.
Yeah.
Like I say this all the time. I'm like, man, they don't know me. Your boy, you don't know me, son. That's exactly what he's saying, right? Like
Yeah.
they
You
don't
don't
know.
know. Yeah. That's a very, I mean, because I think you make an impression so fast on someone. Like, that's why people are always like, oh, that's why only tall people get like the chicks, or like that's why only the people who with great genetics have the chicks, because you make the impression so fast, but they don't know you at all. Like like if I saw you on the street, like if some girl saw you on the street, she could have a completely different impression than who
Yeah,
you truly are.
yeah. Well, my man Goggins said, "You don't know me, son."
You don't know
Like,
me, bro.
like you go into that mode,
Bro,
man. You
I've
go
read his
into
book like 3 times. He is a demon, man. I really wonder like that 100 mile race shit when he was like 300 pounds. Like I don't think that like I don't know if he's lying about that. I really don't know because that is crazy. That is crazy.
that's also like fairy tale, like
That's like a bedtime
crazy.
story type of thing. Like that's ridiculous. Have
But
you ever like, done something like that though? Have you ever like seen something like something like that happen before?
yeah, like I mean, I think that like when you're around like especially like on the athlete side, when you're around elite level people and they have the mentality to match
Mhm.
that skill set, it's unbelievable. And first of all, it makes you better. It pushes you like to a whole nother stratosphere because you may be thinking you working hard, right? You be like, man, I got this killer workout, boom, boom, boom. And then me and you come work out together. And then you be like, wait a minute, this guy is like,
No,
like
I don't want to work out with you, man. You make me look so fucking weak. You be benching like 315. I'm just
but but what happens is it levels you up. Like the
yeah.
more you put yourself around elite level people with the mentality, it levels you up.
One thing I
Um,
want to do too is like, can you compare who you were when you were first starting out versus who you are right now? Like, what, like for example, like weight training or your mindset or your financials. Like, one thing I think that's super cool is that right now, I don't think you realize how far you've come. Like, you may have, but like, can you compare who you were when you were first starting with who you are now? Like, just a quick example, because I feel like that helps people show that it's not you can't just change overnight. Like it's an exponential. Like one day I'm zero, next day I'm like all that.
oh yeah, you have to commit to doing the ugly thing, right? And here's my example. So when I went to college, like when I first got to college, I could not stand in front of a group of 5 people and speak.
Mhm.
Like I was like terrified. I couldn't like communicate my thoughts and
Yeah,
articulate my words. Like I couldn't do it. So that first semester, I took a speaking class, a public speaking class, made a D. It's like, man, I can do better than that.
you do better.
Another one, and I just kept taking them. I didn't even have no aim, no. I didn't have anything like planned. I was just like, I just need to get better. I need to get
Yeah,
better. I just kept like doing it, and to the point where like my counselor was like, hey, you got enough credits to get a degree in this, right? But it's just like once you kind of like lock into that mindset of like, I don't want to be who I was. I don't
mhm.
want to be the person that can't stand in front of people and communicate. I didn't want to be that person. And then from there, I went from being a published author, speaking and like, like in front of
Yeah,
like thousands of people and just, but it's because I locked into that. And I can look back and remember that guy that just couldn't do it. Like he couldn't stand in front of a crowd of people and really like say his name and where he was from without having like voice cracking and
that's
like
crazy because you're so articulate now. I really can't imagine that. That's really
uh,
cool.
and that's the thing that people always say. They're like, man, the people like from before was like, man, you like a different person. Like we don't even know you, man. Like this is crazy. Like how did you do that? And that's what it was. I was just committed to like doing the ugly thing. It was ugly. I would go into those classes, and we would have to have a 5 minute presentation. Mine would be 2 minutes, a minute 30, and you know what I mean? Like because I just was so nervous, and so like I
But
just
you
was
made it. You made it happen though. So there you go.
yeah, yeah. So and but that's what I see when I look back at the old me is the guy that just couldn't. I couldn't be on a podcast with you sharing, my thoughts and my ideas about life. It just wouldn't happen.
All right, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but seriously, man, thank you so much. I One thing I do after these podcasts is I clip them up and like I do clips of them and stuff. But this one, it's gonna be so difficult to like limit the amount of clips that I do because there's been
Yeah.
so much great advice. I'm gonna be like clipping the shit up so much, but thank you so much, man. You gave
I
some great
appreciate it.
advice. This is probably one of the best ones I've had, and then I've only had four, but that's not saying that much. But like, this is probably one of the best ones I've had. Seriously, man, I thank you a ton. I really
Hey
appreciate it.
man, hey, appreciate you, man. Hey, keep working, man. Keep doing it, man.
Everyone, man. Appreciate
Keep
it, man.
doing it, man.
All right, guys.
Definitely admire it.
This is the end of the episode. Keep in tune. I'm doing another one Sunday with a CEO, so stay tuned for that.